So welcome to our Mothers Out Front Massachusetts Climate Action Call. Since we will be having many new faces here today, let's go ahead and introduce yourselves in the chat. You can share your name, where you're calling in from, and which organization you're with. So I am Diane Sokol. I'm a member of the Mothers Out Front Brookline Chapter, and I also work with a statewide campaign team. For those of you who are not familiar with our Mothers Out Front climate action calls, in the next 45 minutes, you will learn about a specific climate issue and we will take focused action together. Today, we will be learning about a climate impact that does not get the attention it needs. Climate warming is bringing us more days of extreme heat, and we will learn about the importance of cities and towns across Massachusetts developing local strategies and policies to promote heat resilience. So here's a quick preview of the agenda for our climate action call. We'll start with a brief overview of today's focus, then we'll divide into breakout rooms for a few minutes so we can connect with each other on today's topic. We will rejoin the main room and hear the background information and then move on to our action. We've set aside about 15 minutes of this call to take action together. We will then come back together for a few important announcements and next steps. And we will end this meeting promptly at 12:45, so we do hope you'll stay until the end. Before we get going, I'll quickly go over a few norms for this meeting. Please rename yourself in Zoom with your name and your city or town. Use the chat to share any comments or questions during the call. And please be sure that you stay muted when we are together in this main room. Closed captioning is available, and you should be able to access that tool at the bottom of the screen. And finally, we are recording this climate action call. If you do not want to be seen in the recording, please use the Zoom controls to turn off your video. Climate change is bringing extreme heat to the entire planet. Just last month, Boston was one of over 3,000 cities across the US that reached record high temperatures during that nationwide June heat wave. Each summer seems to break the heat record from the previous summer. The sign in this photo from the September 2023 climate march in New York City predicted that distressing trend. This was the coldest summer of the rest of our lives. And sure enough, the following summer of 2024 broke the record for the hottest summer, and 2025 may also break another. Extreme heat is a climate issue at the intersection of health, buildings, nature, and equity. Environmental justice communities are often more seriously affected by heat events, with residents experiencing greater health impacts, older housing lacking air conditioning, and fewer shade trees for natural cooling. Today, we will learn about approaches that local cities and towns can take to develop heat resilience and how to deliver equitable solutions. But first, we're going to give you all a few minutes to connect in a small group with other participants to talk about your experiences managing extreme heat events, especially as they're coming more frequently and lasting longer. How do you stay cool and comfortable? Do you have family members or neighbors with health conditions that concern you during times of extreme heats? Deb, can you put that question in the chat? Thanks. When we go into these breakout rooms, briefly introduce yourself and be sure that each person gets a chance to speak. When you see the 15-second countdown, use that time to wrap up your conversations. You will automatically rejoin the main room. Have a great time connecting, and we'll see you in about 5 minutes. Okay, welcome back. I hope that you all had some good conversations about managing extreme heat. Today, we welcome Ann Sudduth as our special guest presenter. Many of you may know Ann as the former coordinator of the Brookline Chapter of Mothers Out Front, or in her current role as the statewide chapter network coordinator. Ann now also serves on the National Board of Mothers Out Front. Recently, Ann completed a master's degree program in sustainability, and we invited Ann here today to share with us some of her research on the impacts of extreme heat and what we can do to protect our families and communities. Thank you, Ann, and I will hand the presentation over to you.
Great. Thanks so much, Diane. It's great to see everyone today on yet another hot day. Extreme heat causes more fatalities than all other types of severe weather in the United States. That's represented by the red, blue, and yellow lines at the center of this chart that you see in front of you. Climate change is making the problem worse. It's raising average temperatures and it's increasing the frequency of extreme heat events, like the record-breaking 102-degree day we all experienced in June. 2024 was the hottest year on record since records began in 1850. Heat-related deaths rose sharply after 2020, after remaining stable or declining for decades, highlighting a significant public health threat and indicating a human failure to adapt to rising temperatures. According to the National Weather Service, there were 199 deaths from heat in 2024. While that is an improvement over the 555 deaths in 2023, deaths from heat actually number in the thousands rather than the hundreds, according to a recent study in the Journal of American Medical Association. Heat is not necessarily noted as the cause of death, even when it's a primary factor. Rising temperatures amplify existing vulnerabilities. Certain populations are particularly at risk from extreme heat, including those with elevated heat exposure, like outdoor workers and athletes, those with heat sensitivity, such as older adults, young children, and individuals with chronic medical conditions, or individuals with low adaptive capacity. And that includes low-income individuals, those with limited English proficiency, individuals with disabilities, and those who are socially isolated. Social isolation is actually a lesser known heat risk, but one that can be deadly, especially for isolated seniors. Heat also contributes to air pollution, a major environmental cause of premature death. Rising temperatures worsen ground level ozone, which is a component of smog. Even with all of the air pollution benefits we achieve from switching to clean energy sources by electrifying our buildings, our cars, and greening the grid, air pollution will likely increase because of rising temperatures. A recent study from MIT found that perceived increases in heat, both from weather and from lack of shade, can shorten the distance a person will consider walking, which could increase car usage, decrease micromobility, and public transit use. This would result in even more air pollution from cars on the road. As our warming climate brings hotter weather from May through September, we'll need to consider the impacts on students at the beginning and the end of the school year. Cognitive effects from extreme heat, including learning loss, represent another important health-related impact of rising temperatures. Research on heat and learning indicate that single-digit increases in indoor temperature can affect learning outcomes and cognitive performance, and that minority students are disproportionately impacted. So how will extreme heat affect Greater Boston? Summers that were historically temperate will transition to seasons with 2 to 4 times as many days above 90 degrees. If emissions continue at current levels, summers are projected to have 25 to 42 days above 90 degrees by the 2050s and 33 to 62 more days above 90 degrees by the 2070s. Over time, summer in Boston will start to feel more like summer today in more southern locations, like New York City, Washington, D.C., and Birmingham, Alabama. Notably, humidity, not just temperature, is expected to rise, making hot days feel even warmer. Recent research indicates that across 50 municipalities in the U.S., communities generally acknowledge the seriousness of rising temperatures and of heat events, but there's a common gap in adopting policies to address extreme heat. For those that do take action, How the municipality defines the problem of extreme heat really shapes the solutions it chooses. The focus can be on heat as an acute hazardous event, like a 3-day heat emergency, for example. Your time horizon would then be short, and your emergency management team would take the lead. Or the focus could be on heat as a more chronic problem of rising temperatures, neighborhood hotspots, or urban heat islands. In that case, your time horizon for solving the problem will be long, maybe as long as it takes to grow a shade tree. And your planning department would take the lead. Solutions to heat emergencies range from cooling centers to emergency alerts, misting tents, and providing shade. Whereas solutions to urban heat islands aim to reduce temperatures in buildings and on the street. Common solutions include increasing the urban tree canopy, transitioning dark roofs and pavement to lighter colored roofs, or cool pavement with high albedo, which reflect rather than absorb heat from the sun. Heat resilience plans integrate both types of solutions, incorporating strategies that manage emergency needs and to plan for long-term infrastructure changes. In this graphic illustration, you can see the emergency management approaches on the lower half of the graphic, like public education, emergency warning alerts, opening up cooling centers, and responding to electricity needs. On the upper half, you can see the longer-term planning approach to mitigate the heat, building shade structures, increasing tree coverage, keeping buildings cooler with insulation, and providing light-colored roof and pavement surfaces to reflect the heat. The two approaches taken together will provide the range of solutions to meet the current and future needs to promote human well-being in the context of our warming climate. In this context, municipalities are assessing local heat vulnerability and developing strategies to enhance community heat resilience. I conducted a case study on Brookline, Massachusetts to consider how gaps in municipal heat response can leave vulnerable residents at risk. I chose Brookline because of my familiarity with the town as a resident, but also because of the town's complexities. Brookline has a reputation as a wealthy, leafy suburb of Boston, but it actually has a range of high and low income households with significant income inequality. In fact, 1 in 4 households face financial vulnerability. Many neighborhoods in Brookline lack significant tree canopy coverage, and Brookline is also known for leading the state on climate action, all of which make it an interesting town to study. Thus, Brookline's level of preparedness for rising temperatures could be a helpful indicator for other municipalities in the state. It's worth noting that all communities must balance climate adaptation with other competing financial priorities. This balancing act can delay adaptation efforts and create a gap between a community's acknowledgement of the climate threat and the actual implementation of plans. This adaptation gap is particularly widespread in addressing heat. Brookline identified rising temperatures as one of 4 hazards of concern starting in 2017. In 2019, in collaboration with the Boston Museum of Science, Brookline collected ambient air temperature data, leading to a heat map for the town as shown. North Brookline, shown at the top of this map, is hotter than South Brookline, which is less densely populated and has more tree coverage. As part of my case study, I surveyed decision makers in Brookline from among our 255 town meeting members, and also a group of professionals, including local experts and town staff. In Brookline, surprisingly, 2/3 of the decision makers and nearly half of the professionals I surveyed were not at all or only slightly familiar with Brookline's heat plans. Confidence in Brookline's preparations for rising temperatures was more mixed, with 50% of the decision makers and 30% of the professionals not at all confident or only minimally confident in Brookline's preparation for extreme heat. Key findings from the study stood out. First, Both decision makers and professionals agreed. Extreme heat is the #1 climate threat facing Brookline. That surprised many people I spoke with who expected stormwater flooding to be the top concern, but it wasn't. Second, social isolation was the least understood risk factor related to heat. Many didn't realize how it can compound the danger. And finally, professionals raised real concern about residents at the highest risk, especially those without access to air conditioning. What came through clearly in the interviews is that heat doesn't just threaten people's health and safety. It also affects civic life, making outdoor events harder to hold, reducing neighbor-to-neighbor interactions, and even discouraging people from walking to their favorite neighborhood spots. I found 3 specific heat adaptation gaps in Brookline. These may also be challenges in your own city or town. First, in the schools. Brookline hasn't yet addressed how extreme heat could affect learning loss and equity. Some buildings and classrooms have air conditioning and others do not. This issue is not yet on Brookline's radar, even though the state has flagged learning loss from extreme heat as a priority impact. Second, neighborhoods. Despite addressing urban heat islands in its early climate action plans, Brookline has not yet implemented heat resilience planning tools that could require shade, cool roofs, or other cooling strategies in the neighborhoods that need them most. That includes areas identified as environmental justice neighborhoods. And third, individuals. There's no plan yet to identify or support low-income seniors without air conditioning, even though the town staff and leaders recognize this group as especially vulnerable.
Thank you, Anne, so much for sharing all of this information about the impacts of increasing heat. I know for me, this is all news. So some of you may be wondering what you can do locally to protect your families and communities from the impacts of heat. Similar to many other climate issues, the answer really starts with knowledge of the threat of heat, as we've learned today, and also awareness of when these extreme heat events are expected. We need to advocate in our communities that our local municipal leaders plan for emergency heat management, such as setting up indoor and outdoor cooling centers, as well as planning for long-term heat mitigation, such as increased planting of shade trees and creating light-colored roofs and roadways. And also critical is communication of these plans, so the community is both aware of the impact and also able to participate in the solution. So with those steps in mind, we will now take action together. We will share a link for the action toolkit that we have prepared, but first I want to quickly describe the steps in today's action. We will start with a quick action today to quickly sign up for alerts so you are fully aware of anticipated heat events and know how to act. Well, then I'll do a bit of research to look into what our city or town is planning for heat resilience, and we will write to our local leaders. And our bonus action today will be to share with your local networks some practical tips for staying cool. So I will explain a bit more. Action 1 has 2 quick parts. The first part is signing up for your local emergency alerts. If you're not already on the system for your city or town, there's usually an option for alerts by text, email, and/or phone call. Here's an example of the text sent out on Saturday by the town of Brookline with details about the upcoming heat emergency and where to find out more info. So our toolkit actually made it easy. We've provided the sign-up links for many local cities and towns. And the second easy part of Action 1 is signing up for alerts from Green Energy Consumers Alliance for their Shave the Peak program. These alerts will let you know when you can take action to help lower air pollution during an extreme heat event by limiting or postponing your use of major electrical appliances, vehicle charging, and air conditioning, especially between 6 and 8 p.m. The toolkit also provides links to some background info on the Shave the Peak program for those who may have missed our 2022 climate action call on this topic. So action number 2 is the one that takes a little more work. This involves sending an email to a leader in your city or town about developing a municipal heat resilience plan. First, we ask you to do a little research to see if your city or town has a plan already available for community access. As an example, on the right is a Google search for Arlington, Mass. Heat Resilience Plan. And highlighted in pink from the AI overview are some links that pop up for our regional heat resilience planning efforts that include Arlington. So these links would be good to take a quick look at before writing your email. The action toolkit then provides a sample email message for you to copy and customize a bit. We've highlighted in yellow where you need to add the name of your city or town, where you need to write a sentence or two about your connection to the threat of extreme heat, and where you may need to customize the message depending on what you found from your search for heat resilience plans. A bonus action today is to read through this brochure assembled by the Brookline Mothers Out Front chapter and then share with your friends and neighbors some easy practical tips for staying cool. That could be via email, social media, neighborhood message boards, or when you happen to run into your neighbors on the street, in the parks, or at summer events. All of these instructions are in the action toolkit. Deb will drop that link into the chat again. When you click on that link and scroll down through the document, you'll see all of the instructions for these actions. So we're all going to be quiet for the next few minutes so we can take these actions together. If you have any questions, you can drop them in the chat. If you're really struggling with this, don't worry. You'll get all these instructions by email later today or tomorrow. But if possible, do get started now, and maybe you can even finish it. We will see you back here a little after 12:40.
I find these calls to be informative and impactful, and I hope you do too. It's going to take a lot of people to tip the scales in favor of real climate solutions. Every month that we do these calls, our voices get louder and more decision makers take notice and take action. That is the power of our movement. Later today, you will receive a follow-up email. It will have links to a recording of this call, the slides, and the toolkit we shared together today. We encourage you to forward that email to your networks. Share with your friends and neighbors the importance of local heat resilience planning and what you learned that your city or town is doing. Mothers Out Front hosts a welcome call every month. If you have asked yourself, what more could I be doing to stop climate change, then this is the right event for you. At this event, we will work to help you identify the U-shaped hole in this movement. We want to help you find ways you can use your unique talents, skills, and experiences to build a stronger, more effective, more inclusive movement for change. We have 2 calls coming up this summer. One is this Friday, July 11th at noon, which I'll be facilitating. And the next one is Friday, August 8th at noon. Deb will drop the registration links for both of those into the chat. So join us and bring a friend. We want this climate action call to be on your calendar every month. We will be taking the month of August off and returning early in September with some updates on our priority legislation at the State House. Watch your emails for an announcement about the September call. Many thanks to all of you for joining us today, and especially to Ann Sudduth for sharing her research with us. Enjoy the rest of your summer. Stay cool, and we will see you again in September.